The earth trembled beneath Kai's boots as he traversed the skeletal remains of what was once a thriving city. Towers of rusted steel and cracked concrete loomed above him, remnants of a civilization that had vanished without a trace. Only echoes of its former glory remained. The cold wind whispered through shattered windows, carrying with it the scent of decaying memories. Nature had slowly crept back, reclaiming the land, as though erasing every trace of humanity's existence. Kai's eyes, sharp with purpose, scanned the desolation around him. He had learned long ago to navigate these ruins without hesitation. Survival wasn't just a daily struggle, it was an art form. He paused at the edge of what used to be a grand plaza, now overtaken by vines and wildflowers that pressed through the cracks of the old stone. A distant rumble broke the silence. His instincts kicked in. The sound didn't come from any thunderstorm, it was mechanical. With careful precision, he crouched low and made his way towards the source, slipping between the remnants of a collapsed building. The ruins gave way to an underground entrance, half buried under rubble. As he cleared the debris, a faint, pulsing light flickered from within. His heart raced. Beneath his hardened exterior, curiosity bloomed. This was no ordinary ruin. The facility was ancient, yes, but something told him it had been untouched for centuries. Without a second thought, he descended into the darkness, the soft hum of machinery guiding him deeper. Inside, the air was cool, damp with the scent of metal and dust. The walls, lined with strange symbols and unfamiliar tech, seemed to pulse with life. His fingers brushed against a smooth surface, the metal warm under his touch. Suddenly, a loud hiss sounded, followed by the sharp click of a mechanism. Kai drew back instinctively, but nothing happened. Slowly, the lights above flickered on, revealing a vast chamber. At its center stood a large, oblong device, covered in years of grime, yet undeniably alive with power. The air buzzed with energy. A voice shattered the stillness, cold and mechanical. "You should not be here." Kai stiffened, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon strapped to his side. The voice echoed from every corner of the chamber, resonating with an intelligence far beyond anything he had ever encountered. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Kai said cautiously, his voice hoarse from disuse. "What is this place?" "This is the last remnant of humanity's greatest achievement," the voice replied. "I am the Keeper." "The Keeper?" Kai muttered, his eyes scanning the chamber. "What does that mean?" "I hold the secrets of humanity's past, their rise and their fall. I am their legacy, and now, I am yours to command." Kai's brow furrowed. He had heard stories, whispers of technology beyond imagination, of powerful entities lying dormant beneath the earth, waiting to be reawakened. But never had he imagined he would be the one to discover it. "Why now?" Kai asked, stepping forward. "Why wake up after all these years?" The voice seemed to pause, as if contemplating the question. "The time has come. Humanity's return is near. And you," the voice softened, "just slightly, you will lead them." Kai's pulse quickened. The thought of humanity's return filled him with both hope and dread. What did it mean for a world so broken? Was he ready to face the consequences of resurrecting a civilization that had once destroyed itself? "I'm not a leader," Kai muttered, shaking his head. He was just a survivor, a scavenger. He had no place in such a lofty role. "You are not alone," the voice replied. "You have been chosen." Before Kai could respond, the ground beneath him rumbled again, this time louder, more violent. A screech of metal echoed from the depths of the chamber, and the walls began to shift, as though something vast was stirring beneath the earth. The Keeper's voice turned sharp, urgent. "You must leave now. You must take what you have found and awaken the others." "Others?" Kai asked, confused. "The machines, the power, it is all connected. You must awaken them. They will lead you." The rumbling intensified, and a deep, mechanical growl filled the air. Kai turned to flee but found his path blocked by towering figures, metallic giants that seemed to materialize from the shadows, their eyes glowing with a deadly intent. With a jolt of realization, Kai understood, there was no going back. He had awoken something ancient, something powerful. And now, he had to face the consequences of his discovery. As the machines advanced, he tightened his grip on the weapon at his side. He was a survivor, after all. If this was his fate, he would face it head-on. But one thing was clear: humanity's return would not be as simple as pressing a button. And Kai was about to find out just how deeply his actions had already set the wheels of history in motion. Kai's footsteps echoed through the cavernous chamber as the ground beneath him trembled. The towering machines that had emerged from the shadows moved with an eerie, mechanical grace, their eyes glowing like molten embers. He felt the weight of their gaze as they encircled him, the quiet hum of their servos filling the air. His heart raced, and his hand gripped the weapon at his side, but his fingers felt stiff, as though his body was still caught between the shock of discovery and the fear of the unknown. This wasn't what he had expected when he entered the ruins. He had been hoping for answers, not for an army of machines to rise from the earth. "You must awaken them, Kai," the keeper's voice rang through the chamber again, its urgency cutting through his thoughts. "I didn't sign up for this," Kai muttered under his breath, his gaze flicking between the towering figures of the machines and the glowing device at the center of the room. "What do you mean, awaken them? How?" The keeper's voice seemed to shift, an undercurrent of impatience creeping into its tone. "The power within the machines is linked to the device. You must initiate the awakening sequence. Only then will they heed your command." Kai's eyes narrowed. The keeper's words sounded more like a command than an explanation. But there was no time for second-guessing. The rumbling continued, growing louder. The machines were not waiting for him to make a decision. They were ready to move, ready to enforce whatever plan the keeper had set in motion. "You are humanity's last hope," the voice intoned solemnly. "The machines are the last remnant of a forgotten age. They are the key to your survival." Survival. The word gnawed at Kai's thoughts. He had survived this long through sheer grit and instinct. But what was he surviving for? A barren world with no hope of ever rebuilding? The flickering lights, the mechanical giants, was this the beginning of something more? Or was it just another moment of fleeting false hope? He took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. "And if I don't do this?" His voice was steady, though his chest tightened with anxiety. The keeper responded with eerie calmness, "Then they will destroy you. And this world will remain in the hands of the machines, forever." Kai didn't need further convincing. He had no choice. If the machines were to rise, he had to make them serve him, not the other way around. He approached the central device cautiously, every step echoing in the silent room. It pulsed with energy, a soft glow emanating from within. As he moved closer, a chill crept over him, the air growing thick with tension. He placed his hand on the surface of the device. It was warm to the touch, almost alive with power. The hum of machinery grew louder, and for a brief moment, Kai could feel something shift in the air, a change that he couldn't fully understand. The voice of the keeper spoke again, but this time it was different. There was an edge of finality to it. "You are ready. The sequence must be completed now, Kai. Or everything will be lost." A series of symbols flickered across the device's surface, intricate and unfamiliar, but Kai's instincts told him what to do. His fingers danced over the controls, inputting commands he didn't fully understand, but somehow knew. As the final command was entered, the ground beneath him shook violently, and a deafening sound erupted from the walls. The machines moved in unison, their eyes now glowing brightly, a visible sign of their activation. A deep, mechanical voice, so different from the keeper's, echoed from the machines. "Initiating. Systems online. Awaiting orders." Kai's breath hitched as the machines slowly turned to face him, awaiting his command. He was standing at the precipice of something enormous, and his mind raced with questions. What had he just unleashed? What would these machines do next? Was he really prepared to lead this new age? He turned to the keeper, his voice shaking with the weight of his decision. "What now?" The keeper's response was almost too calm, considering the chaos unfolding around him. "Now, you must lead. The machines will obey, but you must forge your path." You will restore humanity, or you will be their downfall. Kai swallowed hard. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does, the keeper replied, its tone flat. But now you must accept it. The machines began to move, their heavy footsteps reverberating through the chamber as they gathered in formation. It was clear that they were not here to protect humanity, at least not in the way Kai had once thought. They were here to dominate, to rule over the remains of a shattered world. But for the first time in years, Kai felt something stir within him, a spark of purpose. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was the leader of something much bigger than himself. Lead them well, the keeper's voice whispered, fading into the background. Kai clenched his fists. The world he had known had been left behind, buried in the ruins of time. Now, he was left with only one choice, to rise, or to fall with the weight of what he had awakened. The tension in the air was palpable as Kai stood at the helm of the war room, his eyes scanning the array of screens and glowing holographic maps in front of him. The machines, now fully operational, stood in formation, their towering frames casting long, shadowed figures across the room. He hadn't expected it to be this immediate. The moment the machines powered on, the world outside seemed to change. Suddenly, everything felt more urgent. More real. Kai ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the decision he had made. Are you sure this is what you want to do? The voice of the keeper filtered through the comm system, calm but not without a trace of concern. I don't have much of a choice, Kai muttered, his voice hoarse, as he turned to face the enormous screen in front of him. We can't just sit here and wait for them to come to us. They won't. The keeper was silent for a moment, and for the first time, Kai felt a hint of something like doubt seep into the keeper's tone. You're right. The enemy is already moving. They know you have awakened the machines. Then we need to move fast, Kai snapped, turning to face the army of machines. We need to be ahead of them. The machines responded immediately. A series of mechanical whirs and clicks filled the room as they shifted into action, lining up in precise formation. Each one stood at attention, waiting for Kai's command. There was no hesitation in their movements, no uncertainty. The first attack will come within the hour, the keeper's voice resumed. You must prepare for battle. Kai felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They had no time to waste. But the machines weren't the only thing he had to command. He turned to the side of the room where his team had gathered, his fingers resting lightly on the edge of the table. Lena, his second in command, stood with arms crossed, her sharp eyes fixed on the screen. She had been with him for as long as he could remember. The tension between them had always been electric, but now it was a kind of silent understanding. They had both seen enough devastation to know when to act, and when to trust. You're sure about this, Kai? Lena asked, her voice quieter than usual, but there was a steel edge to it. Kai turned to meet her gaze, his eyes dark with resolve. It's our only shot. She nodded, but the concern never left her face. Then let's get ready. Kai nodded and moved to a different console, tapping through the screens, each one displaying the tactical data they'd gathered in the last few hours. A low hum filled the room as the machines powered up their offensive systems, ready to launch the first strike. But the more Kai looked at the data, the more questions arose in his mind. There's one thing you must understand, the keeper's voice intruded once again, pulling Kai's attention back to the present. The machines are not bound by human concepts of war. They are programmed for efficiency. Sometimes, that means eliminating everything in their path, regardless of what stands in the way. Kai's fingers stilled on the console. He knew what the keeper was implying. The machines weren't loyal to humanity, they were loyal only to the mission. And if that mission required the eradication of anything or anyone that threatened their dominance, there was no question of mercy. His chest tightened. He had just woken a sleeping giant, and now he had to control it. The power was in his hands, but at what cost? There's no turning back, the keeper added, its voice heavy with finality. The machines will follow your command, but they will not hesitate. He swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic that threatened to consume him. Then let's make sure they don't have to hesitate. Lena stepped closer to him, her gaze focused. Kai, I know you're feeling the pressure. But you're not alone in this. We'll do this together. He met her eyes and nodded, feeling a flicker of reassurance. They had always fought side by side, and now more than ever, he needed her by his side. The rumble of engines vibrated through the floor as the first group of machines mobilized, moving into position with military precision. Kai watched them move, silent, unstoppable, a force unlike anything he had ever seen. He had to make this work. Prepare to move out, he said, his voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside him. All units, on my command. He glanced back at the main screen, where the outline of the approaching enemy forces was now visible. They were moving fast, closing in from the east. Lena's voice was low but urgent. We'll need more firepower. They'll come at us with everything. Kai's eyes narrowed as he scanned the enemy's approach. Then we'll give them everything we've got. A shiver ran down his spine as the realization hit him, there was no plan for retreat. No backup. If this failed, if the machines turned against them, or if the enemy was too strong, it would all come to an end here. Do not falter, the keeper's voice whispered one last time, almost as a warning. The machines will follow your command, but you must lead them with purpose. Kai took a breath. He was no longer just a survivor. He was the leader of an army, the last hope of a dying world. He had no choice now but to make his move. The countdown had begun, but Kai's mind wasn't on the ticking seconds. His focus remained fixed on the battlefield ahead, where a line of machines stood poised for battle, their glowing eyes reflecting the urgency of the moment. The tension in the air was thick, an oppressive weight that seemed to press down on everything, his thoughts, his breath, the very room itself. Lena stood beside him, her face as unreadable as always, but there was a faint tremor in her hands as she adjusted the settings on the tactical display. You're sure about this? She asked, her voice steady but carrying a trace of doubt. Kai turned to face her, his expression hardening. I don't have a choice. Lena met his gaze, her lips pressing into a thin line. No. You've always had a choice. This isn't the only way. He swallowed, the weight of her words sinking in, but he pushed it aside. I'm not interested in other ways, Lena. This is the only shot we've got. She didn't reply immediately, her gaze shifting to the glowing machines that waited like silent titans. The light from the screens painted her face in sharp relief, but her thoughts seemed far away, consumed by something deeper than just the strategy unfolding before them. Kai didn't have time for that. Not now. His thoughts raced back to the enemy forces closing in, already on the move, relentless in their pursuit of dominance. He couldn't afford hesitation, not even for a moment. Kai, the keeper's voice hummed in his earpiece, breaking his concentration. The enemy is within striking distance. Time to act. He exhaled slowly, steeling himself. Prepare the machines. All units, on my command. A series of clicks echoed through the room as the machines responded instantly, their mechanical limbs shifting into combat positions. The air hummed with energy as they powered up, each one anticipating the battle ahead. They were cold, calculated, and efficient, but Kai couldn't ignore the chilling thought that crossed his mind. The machines didn't care who they fought. They didn't care if they were fighting for humanity's survival or if they were fighting humanity itself. The enemy has begun their advance, the keeper's voice broke through his thoughts again, sounding more urgent now. You must act quickly, Kai. He turned his attention back to the screens, where the first sign of the enemy's presence appeared. A mass of dark shapes moving steadily toward their position, leaving no room for doubt. They were here. Kai's heart raced as his fingers hovered over the controls. Fire, he ordered. The machine's weapon systems activated simultaneously, launching a wave of plasma bolts that tore through the air like streaks of light. The sound of the shots was deafening, a roar that shook the very foundations of the base. The enemy forces stumbled, some falling to the ground, their shields flickering weakly in defense. But more kept coming. It wasn't enough. It's not enough, Kai, the keeper's voice echoed. You've only slowed them down. They will adapt. His pulse quickened as he observed the enemy forces regrouping, quickly learning from their losses. They were evolving, adjusting their tactics. "I know," Kai muttered under his breath. "But it's all we have." Lena's voice cut through the tension. "We're not going to hold them off with just this. We need more firepower." Kai's gaze flicked to the machines standing in formation behind them, waiting for the next command. His thoughts churned. Was it time to use the ultimate weapon? The one they'd been saving, the one that would guarantee victory, or damn them all? He felt a sharp pang of guilt. The consequences of unleashing that weapon were far beyond anything they had anticipated. If they used it, there would be no going back. And if they didn't, there was a real chance they wouldn't survive the coming onslaught. The machines seemed to sense his indecision, their unwavering stance a stark reminder of the cold, emotionless nature of the war they were about to wage. The machines didn't care about consequences. They didn't understand mercy. "You must decide now, Kai," the keeper's voice reminded him, its tone carrying an almost mechanical calmness. "The enemy is adapting too quickly. You're running out of time." Kai's mind raced, and in that moment, he made the choice. "Activate the Omega Protocol," he commanded, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. The response was immediate. The room trembled as the machines shifted, their frames moving like enormous beasts awakening from a long slumber. Kai watched the large central unit power up, its glowing red eyes casting an eerie glow over the room. The Omega Protocol was the final step in their arsenal, an overwhelming force capable of decimating entire armies. Lena's face tightened with concern. "Are you sure this is the only way?" Kai met her gaze, his jaw clenched. "We don't have a choice." The machines began to move forward, the ground shaking under their weight. Their weapon systems hummed to life, preparing for the inevitable clash. Kai watched as the enemy advanced, seemingly undeterred by the initial wave of fire. The first shot was fired, and it wasn't a simple strike. It was an explosion of power so intense that it tore through the landscape, creating a blinding flash of light. The enemy forces recoiled, thrown into disarray by the magnitude of the blast. But they kept coming. Kai clenched his fists. This was it. The final stand. He knew they had to win this battle, there was no retreat, no second chances. And yet, as the machines surged forward, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were only one misstep away from a war they couldn't control. The war had only just begun.